You're listening to the Cryptid Creature Show. If you're a fan of the show, go and check out our new Patreon site. You'll get access to our private Discord server, exclusive merchandise, access to all live streams and Q&As, discounts on merch from the Cryptid Creature store, and get a chance to be a guest host during one of the show's recordings. Just go to www.patreon.com/cryptidcreatures1. Thank you for listening and supporting the show.
So as I'm walking and I'm pushing the lawnmower, I don't know what it was. I just had this feeling like, look left, like something's there. And there it was. And believe me when I tell you, like the first thing that really popped into my mind was, what is that? And that's not supposed to be there. The thing was huge. Blockhead, like big square, like a gorilla, but it was square through the lower jaw.
This is the Cryptid Creature Show. I am Brian, and with me as always, my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Brian, I don't even need to ask this question, but as a kid, did you have to mow the yard when you were growing up?
Yeah.
And probably push mowing it as well, just like
Push
I did.
mowed it, yep.
Well, tonight's guest, Blandy, had an encounter while he was mowing his parents' backyard.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, so apparently had somewhat of a close-up Bigfoot encounter. This thing's watching him as he mows, so really kind of interested to hear what he's going to tell us and what he saw.
Yeah, me too.
All right, what do you say we bring him on?
Yep, let's get him.
Thanks for being here today with us and talking to us, Blandy.
Yeah, I'm coming to you from, I call it my dungeon. You know, we had some serious rain around here, so the only place I can get away from the family and have some time is down here in the basement, where we had to pick up everything off the floor because we had some water coming in. So I'm currently sitting on one couch and I'm staring at Halloween decorations and skeletons and, you know, and crock pots. You know,
that's the perfect setting for what we're going to talk about then, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
You had a Bigfoot encounter, right?
Yes.
And what state did that happen in?
New York.
Okay. Well, go ahead and tell us what was going on that day and what you're doing and what happened to you.
All right. I guess I should start with a little background. Right where I live in Hillburn, New York, and I've been outside of my Navy years, and about 10 years, 15 years I spent in Michigan once I got out of the Navy. I've been in this house and in this little village my entire life. So I know, you know, like outside of my Navy travels and whatnot, like this is kind of where the majority of my life has been. And right here in the same house. August of 1982, I was 11. And we have right here around right here in not only the area, but in the town I live in, is we used to have what we used to call the dog days of August. And that was, well, you guys probably know, it's hazy, hot, humid, no rain, everything gets real dry, and just, you know, the grass goes, you know, from green to like a straw brown, and, you know, it's just awful. And I remember this day in particular, not because of my experience, but because at the time, you know, every day, me and the guys that I grew up with, we had a thing that every afternoon at about 3:00, when, you know, it started to cool a little bit, was time to go play wiffle ball. You know, that was, you know, fill up our little gate. You know, this was the 80s, right? So we'd fill up our jugs with old cheap Kool-Aid, and we'd haul and go play wiffle ball until we got yelled at because the chores weren't being done. And on this particular day was no different. My mother, who was a very big taskmaster, was told me that I had to have the yard mowed, and like, you know, just the yard work better be done by the time she gets home, or I could forget whatever was going on, like ice cream or bowling or whatever, you know, activity was for that weekend. And I sure didn't want to do it because it was just ungodly hot that day. Like normally, more than normal, hotter than usual. Or at least I think it was. Maybe it was just irritating me because I couldn't go play wiffle ball. So, and my mother was the kind that when she got home from work, she would stand and look out like one of the bedroom windows upstairs and look out over the backyard. And I swear she could pick out like 2 blades of grass, out of the whole entire backyard that weren't cut. So then I'd have to redo the whole thing again, like she was that kind, which is how I got to be out back when all this happened anyway, which is how it plays into the story. And another part that plays into the story, is we had this dog. We named him Buzz Droopy after the old Buzz Droopy on Tom and Jerry. He was a Saint Bernard German Shepherd mix. I mean, big dog. And he, for whatever the reason, he didn't want to come in the house. I don't know. Like, like we had him in the house. We had every intent of making him like a house pet, even though he was that size. But he didn't want to stay in the house. So we had like a little dog house for him out there, and we would keep him like chained up out there, and then we would, bring him in the house and try to cool him off, and he'd stay in for a few and go back out. But where the dog is significant to the story, because I don't want to get too far off of what we're here for, is the dog was, he was 100, 110 pounds if that dog was 3 ounces and was afraid of absolutely nothing. And he couldn't stand the lawnmower, or any yard equipment that we may have. He just barked and growled like he was a circus lion or something. Like anytime that he saw the lawnmower even come out of like the little tool shed we had in the backyard at the time. So I guess this is where things started getting, and I didn't realize it at the time, so you got to bear with me a minute. Like a lot of things happened that by themselves at the time, and like I said, it's 40 odd years ago now, didn't add up to much at the time until after the incident, and I had time to think about it. And I'm like, yeah, these are things that, well, I look at it with older eyes now too. But yes, there are things I should have noticed. Like this isn't, ordinary or the usual. So out there in the backyard, and I'm mowing, and I'm sorry I didn't have a chance. It rained here last night and this morning, so I didn't have a chance to go out and take pictures of the spot, in the woods here, off to the right-hand side of the house where it actually happened. But it's real thick. It still is real thick. Like we got sumac and oak trees, lots of maple trees too, and we have this, I don't know what you would call it. To me, I just call it wild grapevine. And, other states call it different stuff, the kudzu or whatever. It's just nasty vine that just drapes over everything. It's almost like a green curtain. So you really can't see much through the woods or into the woods very far. So, anyways, I'm out there and I'm doing the mowing thing. And I'm picking up all these little sticks because we have these oak trees, and and they're old, old oak trees. I couldn't tell you how old. I know the one oak tree we got out there is, I don't know, it's got to be at least 3 feet in diameter, at about the ground. So, I mean, it's an old one. And every year, about in August, the acorns start coming down and branches will start coming down. The squirrels rattle them. It's just debris that comes out of the trees and lays in the backyard. And my mother always wanted that picked up and thrown back out in the woods, before we mowed, because she didn't want to pay for lawnmower blades or whatever reason she had. I don't know. So I was out there and I had the lawnmower running, and I would mow, and then I would come across, like bits and pieces of branch, and I would throw them back out in the woods. And then as I was doing this, I realized that there were still acorns and stuff coming back at me. And I just thought that wow, those squirrels are really doing their thing today. They're up there rattling, and as I'm picking them up out of the yard, more coming off the tree. It didn't occur to me that something else might be going on. I just figured it was, well, the squirrels, and they're doing their thing. And so that went on, and then, like I said, the dog was absolute nut. Like, could not stand it. Oh, it bark and growl at that lawnmower. And this was back before lawnmowers had the safety that they have nowadays. Like, if you let go of the handle, it shuts off. Like, this thing was just, you pulled the string and you got it running, and it just stayed running. So I would just stop mowing and then pick up and throw stuff in the woods and then continue mowing. And then I looked up at the dog because the dog went silent. And he crawled into his doghouse, which at the time I didn't think was different, or odd, let's say, because I figured, well, hell, it's got to be the better part of 95 degrees, and humid and nasty. So I'm like, I literally had the thought that, like, well, he barked himself out. He got way too hot or winded himself or something. And he crawled back in the coop to get out of the sun because, if I had the option, I would have done it too. But he went into the coop and was just, and, like dead silent, stopped his barking. And there were still acorns and stuff falling out of the trees, or what I thought was falling out of the tree. So I went back to pushing, and I was probably about 6 feet or so from where the yard meets the wood line. And I got this real funny, I don't want to say I was being watched feeling, because that wasn't it. It was like I just had the funny feeling that something wasn't right. Like something was odd, like, and it wasn't making sense. Like, I don't know. I just had this feeling that something was off. Couldn't tell you what it was. Didn't feel like I didn't. It wasn't like I was felt like I was being watched or anything. It was just something was just off a little bit. So I pushed the lawnmower and I stopped, and I remember looking off because I was coming, like I was headed back toward the house, as far as my direction of mowing goes, and that would make the woods off to my left. So as I'm walking and I'm pushing the lawnmower, I don't know what it was. I just had this feeling like, look left, like something's there. I didn't see anything, or I just had this feeling like, I don't want to say danger, but like something made me snap my head to the left, like something was there. And lo and behold, and there it was. It was poking kind of up through that wild vine, grapevine, kudzu, whatever you want to call it. And I only seen it from just below the collar, like, I don't know if it like you're like right about from here up. And the rest was in or poking up out of the bush, for lack of a better word to call it. And my first initial reaction, believe it or not, was, and don't ask me where this came from or where the thought came from, because I don't know to this day, and I've thought about it quite a bit over the years, is I looked it in the face, and the first thing I did, and it ran through my head, is don't look it in the eyes. So, like, keep your head down, don't look it in the eyes. So I immediately put my head down, and I was trying to look at it like through my, if you want to call it, my peripheral vision, and like, is it coming toward me or what? And it didn't. It just stood as far as I could tell, because, like I said, I didn't see it anywhere from maybe, like just below collarbone level, up. And I don't know, I'm still dumbfounded to this day. Like, I was telling you the other day when I was talking to you, like the first thing that came through my mind, because, I, at the time, I was 11 years old, like the whole Sasquatch Bigfoot thing, really wasn't something I was 100% aware of, or involved in or into or studying or whatever. It was just I remember the neighbors at my grandfather's talking about, some movie they saw. I don't know what it was. I don't remember when Boggy Creek originally came out or anything like that. But I for sure didn't see it, back then. Had no idea what it was. But there it was. And believe me when I tell you, like, the first thing that really popped into my mind was, what is that? And that's not supposed to be there. Are the first two things that came to my mind. And I was still with my head down, trying to think that maybe it didn't notice it. So let me just keep my head down like I didn't see anything, and slowly, kind of, I don't know if this is the right word to use, but nonchalantly try to make my way toward the back door of the house. And I didn't want to take off running, because I knew enough about, dogs. Sometimes if you take off running, that triggers their prey drive or whatever. I knew that much. So I was like, don't run, just kind of make it to the back door, and get in the house. So I'll get to what I seen in a minute. So I'll give you, as good a detailed description as I can. So what I had done was, this was back when, we had a septic tank, and we had a good sized rock. It was about the size of maybe a baseball. And that was how my father marked where the, I guess, the opening in the tank was. So in case we had to have it pumped out or something, he didn't have to dig all over the yard. He just went to that rock, and then there it was. So I walked over there, and it was the only thing that I could have as like a weapon if I needed one, because I wasn't going to pick the lawnmower up and swing it like I was Conan or somebody, So I went over there and I got the rock, and I picked it up, and still using my peripheral vision, I launched this rock at this thing. And as soon as I threw the rock, I tore into the house as fast as I could. Hopefully that, the rock would startle it, or I don't know, maybe it would chase the rock and leave me be until I got in the house, and so I got in the house. I locked the back door on the fly. Why I locked the back door, I don't know, because if this thing wanted to come in the house, and that back door we had back then wasn't stopping it. And I closed, my mother was a big thing for having shades on the windows. So I shut the shades in the kitchen so it couldn't walk up to the back of the house and look in the house. And I went, and my mother had these old 1970s, late 60s, early 70s era, like coffee tables that you can crawl underneath. And I crawled underneath it, and that's where I stayed until I worked up enough courage to look out the window, to see if it was there, and it was gone. And I didn't go back out there in the backyard to finish what I was doing. So eventually, before my mother came home, the lawnmower ran out of gas. And that's where I left it. And of course, when I told her I wasn't going out there to do it because there's something in those woods, she told me I was full of everything underneath the sun. And, she was going to go get gas, and I was going to finish it. She was going to watch me. So that's how the day ended. But as far as what I had seen physically is, it was kind of the color of, if you've ever seen like a chocolate lab, how they're kind of like that brown, but in the sun, like toward the ends of the hair, I guess if you want to call it hair, that fur, whatever you want to call it, that was on its head and on its shoulders, you could see was like reddish at the end in the sun. And its face, what little bit of face I could see was just around the eyes. Everything else was covered in hair. My father was one for growing a real thick beard. It kind of had a beard, a full beard like my father had, but it was wispier. Like it was not like my father had a like a tight, almost kinky beard. Like this was kind of wispy, like it would blow, looked like it would blow in the wind, but there was no wind there. It just looked long and stringy, and came from about maybe the cheekbones, like down and off the chin, and was kind of stringy. The face was the color of like a person that had a real nice, a real decent looking tan. Almost like I've compared it before to like a cafe au lait or something like that. It was it was tan but still creamy looking. Like you could tell it was a lighter skin that with a tan on it, and that was like the color it was. And it stood stock still, like almost. And over the years, I thought about it, and I was like, how like if you're out in the woods or something, and you, I don't know, startle a rabbit or something, and how the rabbit will move and run to a spot and then stop dead in hopes that you don't see it. And that's what came to mind. Like I think it was watching me. And then when I turned around and caught it looking at me, I think we surprised, and I don't know the truth behind it, but I think we surprised one another. Like and that's just me thinking about it over the years. I think, or at least I hope, is what happened was he thought that I say he, I couldn't tell. I just use it as a he because I didn't see that much. Like I didn't see, boobs or anything else. I didn't see that far down. So I just use he because that's what I've always done is refer to it as he. I think that he thought that the lawnmower and the noise it made or was making allowed him to watch what was going on, and then maybe covered his movement as best as I can guess. And when I turned up and looked, it was like we startled each other, like, and it was, like I say, I gave you the color, the wispiness of the hair, the color. The thing was huge. It had, it was square as much as I could tell through like the jaw, like in through here. Blockhead, like big square cinder blocky looking, like squarish through the temple and the jaw. But you could tell it had a jaw, or maybe that was just the way the hair was, wispy and kind of pointed. But it did have a pointed head, or I guess they call it conical head nowadays, like a gorilla, but it was square through the lower jaw. And the best I can tell you as far as the width at the shoulders was saying it was a refrigerator didn't do that justice. Like that thing was, it had to be, if I had to take a guess, and like I said, bear with me, it was 40 years ago, but it was every bit the size of, a refrigerator, across the shoulders. And like I said, it stood stock still. And I don't know what happened after I came into the house. I know I laid underneath the coffee table there for a solid half an hour that I can remember. I mean, I didn't have a watch, or I was nowhere near the house clock at the time. I know it wasn't a short period of time because I had to squeeze underneath that coffee table, and I stayed there long enough that like my legs and everything was cramping, before I came back out, and it wasn't there anymore because I literally thought at the time that like maybe my mind was just playing tricks on me, like it's maybe when a branch fell down, in the middle of the night or something, and I didn't realize it until I was mowing over that close to it, but when I walked out there, when I got the courage enough to walk back out there, like where it was, there was just like an indentation in that wild grapevine where it was, and there was nothing. It was gone. And by that time, the dog was back out of the coop and looking around, so at that time I figured that it must be gone if the dog came back out. And like I said, I waited till my mother came home before I went out there to finish what I was doing. And like I was saying the other night, my father was a very big outdoorsman. Like he would take me and my brother, like blue claw crabbing and camping, around here in the woods, and that was the end of that for me. And I never used to be afraid of the woods. We used to go out there and play hide and seek with the neighbors' kids, and everything. And when I was younger, and oh no, once it gets dark, you won't catch me out there anymore. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
I can't imagine how you felt. Your mom making you go back out there and finish mowing. You had to have been terrified, looking over your shoulder. I mean, just
Oh yeah.
Oh, I was. I every bit that I was, and like I tried to tell my mother like something was out there, and she just poo-pooed it. Like, yeah, something's out there. It's called grass. Get out there.
I tell you, that would have been the worst mowing job ever because I'd have been running.
Yeah, I was moving. I wasn't wasting any time. Put it that way. No. Yeah, it was probably. I don't want to say probably. That was one of the scariest things that ever happened to me in my 52 years.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creature Show with Todd and Brian. We're glad you're here, and we hope you're enjoying the show. Don't forget to visit our website at www.cryptidcreatures.net. By becoming a member, you'll get access to exclusive videos, members-only episodes, early, unedited, ad-free releases, and even a shout-out on an episode. Join us at www.cryptidcreatures.net, and thank you for supporting the show. Oh, you were in the military.
Yeah. I didn't. I was sonar and anti-submarine warfare when I was in, so I didn't see any hard combat or anything else like these vets had, or even my father was a Vietnam vet. Like I didn't see anything like that. I guess I had as close to an office job as you can probably have and still be, I guess active duty.
Well, thanks for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you notice any smell when you were noticing this creature?
No, no smell. That was and years later looking at it, like I wondered why, but no smell. And like I said, the lawnmower drowned it out, every bit of sound, and before I even started mowing, it was quiet, but it gets like that when it gets to those hot days in August. Like there's not a whole lot of animal activity anyway. So like, which is why I say like, some of this stuff, it didn't add up until I thought about it over the years, and then it started like, yeah, everything was a little bit, quiet. The dog should have noticed something. I should have noticed that the acorns and the twigs and stuff that I was throwing in the woods wasn't coming from up like it was falling off the trees. It was coming this way. I should have realized that, and I didn't until, after the fact, I had a chance to sit down and actually literally think, and sit out there and, and look. And that was days later, before I actually got enough nerve to actually walk back out there in the backyard, to try to look. And like I was going, I crept through the woods to try to find that rock for the septic tank lid, like that I threw, and I found it. But unfortunately, there was no tracks or no nothing, because it was just all the forest litter, or like the leaves and, and years of layers of leaves, and like loamy, kind of soily, like rotten stumps and like that kind of soil. And there was indentations everywhere, but doesn't mean it was a track. It was just the way it was. But it could have been a track. There was nothing discernible. They were just lumps, or like depressions in the leaves. Nothing that looked like anything.
So before and after that, there were no signs of anything ever again? Did you ever have anything happen afterwards?
There's been a couple of nights over the years like to me personally, I'll start there. There's been a couple of nights over the years that I've been sitting out here on the deck. Now that we had since the deck has been built out back here, that the deck wasn't there obviously way back when, but yeah, we'll hear some things that like don't sound right. But I couldn't tell you what it was. I'm just like, well, that's an odd sound. What made that? You know. And like I said the other night, I know we have foxes around here, and I know that. And I put a trail camera up, and I've got a fox making, you know, like right on the trail camera, making some ungodly, you know, sounds in the middle of the night. You can see, I don't know what it was. It was kind of half bark, half growl, half scream, and he was on the camera doing it. But that was then, like say 40 years ago. The area has obviously changed in 40 years. Back then, I think I might have said something to you about it the other day. Back then, there was the major north-south highway, which is only 2 lanes in either direction. Route 17, if you're looking up on a map, runs like right out like on the other side of our little copse of woods here. And that was the main thoroughfare, like north to south through this area. But there was no businesses or nothing. It was just that road and lots of fields and like meadows, but no businesses or anything. It was just still quite natural and wild. Now, all these years later, about a quarter to a half mile from here, they rerouted the highway, and they built a big, you know, like interchange not too far from here. So now this road that used to be major north-south is just a local road that nobody uses. You know, people walk their dogs over on it now like it's you know, like a dog park or something anymore. But a lot of businesses have sprung up now around here. Like there was like a rock quarry that they were taking some of the stone out of the mountain over here. Well, they've since closed, but they were open, making all that noise. They built like a bus garage in like the meadow that was over here, where they serviced like everything from school buses to, you know, tour buses. That makes a lot of noise now. And there's a, I don't know, it's some sort of garbage place now. It's like where they drop a trailer full of garbage off and then they pick another one up. And I don't know, like garbage exchange. I don't know what they're doing, but it stinks really bad, makes a lot of noise. But all that stuff is here now, and whereas back then it wasn't. So since then, no, nothing that I could say. But I have heard of acquaintances. I won't necessarily say that they are, you know, like close friends of mine, but I know who they are, and we, you know, grew up together, or I knew their parents nowadays because we're of an age as at the time. I've heard them say that like they've noticed around here that the legend has, they call them old red eyes around here. So every once in a while there'll be a story about old red eyes being over here by the brook, you know, or somebody noticed them on one morning, you know, like over here, or they saw something. And you know, stuff like that. The only one that does come to mind about it was after my incident there, I went around and I was asking all my friends that I usually played ball with, you know, wiffle ball with, like, because I didn't show up to play wiffle ball, and they heard the lawnmower going, like, did you guys play some sort of a hoax on me? You know, like to try to scare me. And they looked at me like I was a nut, you know, like, what? Like, no, we just figured, you know, you weren't playing. And then my one buddy said that that's odd that I would say something about that, because he was up in the mountains here, you know, just, you know, fooling around just up there in the mountain. And he said that there's this huge rock up there, and I know the rock he's talking about, and the rock is as big as a house, really a small house. I mean, it's just like one great big rock that just sits there. And he said that he was up there, monkeying around that rock. You can see it from the road. It's up on top of the mountain, but you can see it from the road down here in town. It's that big. And he said he was up there, and he heard something and turned around and looked to the side of that rock. And he said he saw a big, his words, not mine, he saw a big hairy hand that kind of slowly slid back, like palm against the rock, but slid back out of sight. And he said he didn't stick around, to see if it was a bear or anything else, because we got plenty of them around here. And that's what he said. And he said, that he hasn't really thought much about it, but it was about the same time, like give or take a month or so of when I had my my experience, that he said he had that one.
Interesting. I wonder if it was just passing through and heard the mower and thought it would come up and check you out, it was like it was playing with you, tossing back the debris and whatnot that you were throwing out of the yard. Maybe it was just curious,
Well, that's what I've thought over the years. I thought that it was just curious. And I'm a firm believer that I don't know how long that it was staring at me or watching me do what I was doing. And I'm a firm believer that if it wanted me, it had me all day long. That's just the feeling I have. I've got no evidence to substantiate that. But I'm just saying, if it, I looked up and it was, I'd like to say from where I was standing behind the lawnmower to where it was, I'd like to say, if I had to guess without measuring it, was about 75 feet or so. I mean, it was close enough that like one quick charge without me hearing anything, it would have been on me like, white on rice. But it didn't. It was just content to sit there and watch and toy with me, like whatever, and that was it. And like I said, it didn't hang around, and my indication was that it was the dog. The dog was back out and of the coop and wandering around and looking. So evidently it must have just left.
It's probably trying to figure out why you were cutting the grass.
Oh, or maybe the sound, like it's, like just that lawnmower drone, like just making all that noise. And sometimes I think maybe, maybe he was interested in the dog, and then, because the dog was barking, making all kinds of noise. So like maybe, it came to see what the commotion was and then just stood around to watch the show. I don't know, but like I said, it could have had me.
Oh yeah.
If it wanted me.
It's almost not even fair. These things can sneak up on us and watch us all day long, and us not even know it. Or just come out of somewhere and just check us out. They're probably just as interested in what we are as what we think what they are to us. But we don't have that opportunity, We get lucky or unlucky once in a while to have an encounter like you did. Yeah. You can't come trompsing in their area and just sit there and watch them do what they do. And that's what he was doing with you. He was just watching you cut the grass and playing a little bit with you and trying to figure out what the heck you were doing. Probably it's just weird,
Oh, it's weird, and it is weird. I'll tell you what else I think is weird. Like I'll watch some of these programs that they have on nowadays, and like the ones they have on TV from time to time, or like I'll read like a post to a website or something, and you get these people that haven't had an experience. Like, oh, I go out in the woods looking for them because I want to have an experience. I'm like, you fool! No, you don't. And I was like, trust me, if I could not have that experience, I would. I'd opt out, because that changed the way, literally, it was all those years ago, 40 years ago, but that changed the way I looked at the world. Like my innocence was gone at that point, and I was like, oh, so what they say is true, not just about Bigfoot, or anything. So I'm like, we don't know. We have no idea what's out there. Like there's people that, with modern GPS units and stuff like that, to get out there in the woods and get lost, never to be seen again. So no, yeah, we don't know what's out there.
Yeah, no, we don't.
The weird thing about this whole encounter, Blandy, that we were talking about a couple days ago is your proximity to a big city.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us how far away you are from New York City.
Okay, as the crow flies, probably about 40 to 45 miles, maybe, west. We're in what they call the Hudson Valley. For any of the viewers that can, you can look it up on a map. It runs, Hudson River runs from the city, like straight up to like Poughkeepsie, like up in there, all the way up into, and it's a place in New York, and it's Hudson Valley, and we're west of the city, and literally I can probably walk out the backyard and throw a rock, and the rock will land in New Jersey. We're that close to the line. But this area, like once you get about like coming west now, like if you stay, if you keep going north along the Hudson River, things are more urban, but and to the east is it stays urban. But when you come to the west, or to the west northwest, which is kind of where my little town is located, it once you get out of like the I don't want to call it the suburbs, but once you get out of like a few miles outside of like the outskirts of the city, there's like it falls away to absolutely nothing. Like right here where my house is, or at my hometown is here in Hillburn, is the Appalachian Trail is not far away from here. And I could literally walk out the back door of my house and cross the old thoroughfare I was just telling you about, what used to be old Route 17. And I could walk up the side of the mountain and I can be nowhere. Like there's no towns, no villages for miles upon miles. And then if you continue further, a little further north, not very far, I'd like to say about 5 miles from here, you have Harriman State Park, and which is nothing but mountains, woods, and lakes, and they keep, people hike and camp. And like I said, the Appalachian Trail, there's trails about a mile here from the house that'll take you to the Appalachian Trail. And and there's all kinds of funny stories come out of the Appalachian Trail.
Oh, I can imagine.
So, yeah. So like there's, and all the older folks around here, like there's a lot of Native Americans around here still. We got the Delaware Lenape, of which I'm part of, or part. And I think we have a little bit of Mohawk around here too. And all the older ones, they still have stories about when they were young, about old Red Eyes and whatnot. So it's some people say it's folklore, but I'm a firm believer. While there's smoke, there had to be fire. Like I don't think they just sat around a campfire one night and decided that, like, hey, why don't we come up with a story? Because all the stories seem a little bit too close to the same.
When you were talking about the color of his hair and the shining of the light, the sunlight, we hear that all the time. It's like a brownish color, but then the tip or the ends of its hair were more of an orangish color. And that's things that we pick up on. We keep hearing these same descriptions of little things over and over and over, and that's why we truly believe that you guys are seeing these things. Otherwise you'd have to just get together as a big group and say, okay, well, let's talk about this and let's say this and da-da-da. You don't know half these people we've talked to. So that right there, people need to understand the validity of this. These things are out there. People are seeing these things. These are real. You're not making these things up.
Oh, I can come up with a lot better stories to tell, like if I really put my mind to it. But
yeah,
I don't know. They're around here. I like to say it's, well, with my experience, it's my little secret. It's like I like it. And every time I go outside, if I'm taking the dog out, to run around in the backyard, or I just go outside to sit on the deck and enjoy a night where the mosquitoes don't want to carry me away. Like, I still look over there toward that spot. It's just habit.
Did you get into researching Bigfoot at all after this happened, or?
Not right after it happened. It took some years. I think what really got me into it big time is I was in the Navy with and I was on board a ship with I guess the the chief bosun's mate, and he was from out in Washington State out there. So I asked him about it. I'm like, you lived out there. Have you ever heard this? Like stories about like the Sasquatch. And he's like, oh yeah. So I was like, well, tell me what you know. And he's like, what is there to know? So I told him about my experience. He's like, oh, he says, you got lucky. He says, normally they don't show themselves. So, and I said, but how do you know when they're around? He's like, you know when they're around. He said, there'll be no doubt in your mind. And he never really elaborated much about it. He says, but oh no, he's like, there'll be no doubt in your mind when they're around.
Do you want to see another one?
No. Sometimes I would think that, or I thought for years, like, I wouldn't mind seeing one from a distance. I don't want to be close to it, but then the more I think about it, the older I get, no. I've seen all I need to see. I don't need to see it again. The funny thing is, this is going to sound funny to you. It's just a thought that I've had over the years. Is when my grandfather was dying. This is back in the early '90s, '92. When he was getting sick and getting toward, I guess, the end. He would sit in the window, of his house, and he would keep telling us how every day and this is going to sound weird, but this is how it happened. But he would say every day he would sit in this one window in his house and he'd look out the window, and he would always say that there was the same squirrel would always come and greet him. And he always said that squirrel would, when he died, that squirrel would be the one that came to get him. And I've always said that, and I've always thought that, like, the next time I see one, it'll be my time, and it'll be, and it's more of a spiritual thing. So I'm like, I guess my guide to the next world or wherever I'm going to end up. So it's like, I think it'll be it. Like, he'll come back to get me. So I don't know. I don't know why I have that thought. Maybe I'm just a weirdo, but. But yeah, no. The other thing I would like to say is, haven't any feelings like, oh, there's one around, or that same something's not right. I haven't felt that since it's around this house. So I don't know. I think it was truly a one in a million.
Yeah, it sounds like, with all the construction and building around your area, what you've talked about, I don't think they really want to come in that area anymore. Obviously back then they
probably found a different route.
Yeah, desolate enough. And again, he might have just been passing through and wanted to see what you were doing and check you out and hear what that noise was. So
yeah.
The other theory I have about that really fast is when I was younger, we used to have an awful lot of wild blackberries used to just grow all over this area. And then until they started building, like in recent years here, last 10, 15 years, where they've started building new houses, and these businesses popping up, and all the fields and meadows that we had around here that all these blackberries used to grow in, they turned them up and made parking lots and bus stations and all the other crap out of it. So I think I've always thought that, like, because of the time of year it was, August is like, that's when the blackberries and the stuff that, starting to, like, I still got some out here in the back, but I can't get to them because the birds get them before I do. But I thought that might be why, that, like, he was in the area. It was like there was all these berries to be had. And there's, like, there's not a lot of people here. So, like, it's almost like he could munch berries, with impunity. Like, nobody'd be around. Nobody'd bother him. But since all that's changed, I think that was pretty much the end of it. But there have been, according to BFRO that I've looked at website, there have been a couple in those past years of that in that Harriman State Park that's not too far away that I just told you guys about. They call it Bear Mountain State Park or Harriman State Park, but there's been a couple sightings up there over the years that are right on that website.
Yeah, he probably was in there getting some food, but maybe that's what he was doing.
We have a lot of water around here too, and like I said, everything needs water. But there's a lot of it's true. Very rocky around here. Well, hence Rockland County where we live. They it didn't take much imagination to come up with that. But we do have a lot of water around here. Like a lot of some are man-made lakes, and like the water just pours out. Like since they put the new traffic interchange in, the water just pours out of the mountain. So there's water everywhere around here.
Yeah, we always say that these things follow rivers and streams and everything too. So it helps keep them covered, where they travel. But
yeah,
Blandy, we thank you for being here today and talking to us, man, and telling us your encounter.
Great encounter.
Well, I'm glad you guys think it was great because, like I said, I'm 52 years old, and there's still parts of that it still shakes me a little bit after all these years.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
As expected, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for being interested.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much. And if something ever would happen in that area or anywhere, reach out to us and let us know what's going on.
Will do, man. Yeah, will do.
For sure.
All right, bud. You take care. Thank you again.
Yep. Take care of yourself.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
See you.
Yep. Thanks.
I like how he said, I stayed in the house and let the mower eventually ran out of gas.
Ran out of gas.
He's like, I'm not going out there.
Hey, yeah, I probably would have done the same thing.
I don't care. It ain't happening. I don't blame him, man. That'd be terrifying.
Yeah. I used to, when we lived up in Michigan, we had a creek and a river. So every time I had to mow by the creek and the river, I was always looking over my shoulder, scared to death.
Oh, really?
But I never had anything like that happen to me. But
maybe something was watching you, though. Maybe that's why you were acting
that
way.
Yeah, could have been.
It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I'm glad we brought Blandy on, and he told us his encounter. It was really cool.
I know, that was fun. Yeah, it's always good to hear those.
Remember, listeners, if you've had an encounter or anyone you know have had an encounter, have them get a hold of us. Come on and talk to us, and maybe we can get on the show and do a recording with you guys if you want.
Yeah, man. Heck yeah.
Reach out.
If you don't, you can just shoot us, type it out, and send it to our website.
Yeah, you could do that too. What's that address again?
www.cryptidcreatures.net.
All right, my friend. It was another good episode. Great hanging out with you again as usual.
Yeah, it was, man. Always fun. Always learning.
All right, I can't wait till next time. Until then.
Yep. See ya.